The wind was cold that night as Daniel walked along the empty street. His shoes were worn and the soles were thin. He had been looking for work all day but no one would hire him. His mother was sick at home and his younger brother had not eaten a proper meal in 2 days. Daniel had no money left and nowhere to turn. He felt forgotten by everyone, even by God. Yet deep in his heart he whispered a faint prayer. Lord, if you are real, please hear me. I do not know what to do. I am losing hope. Daniel had grown up hearing about faith. His grandmother often told him stories about how God provided for those who trusted him. But life had beaten Daniel down. After losing his job at the factory, he had searched everywhere but doors kept closing. People told him to give up and leave the town. But he could not leave his family. His mother's medicine cost more than he could earn doing odd jobs. That night Daniel walked past a small church. The lights were still on even though it was late. He hesitated for a moment, then pushed open the door. Inside, an old pastor was cleaning the floor. Daniel had not been to church for years, but the old man smiled at him kindly and said, "You look troubled, my son." Daniel felt his chest tighten and tears came to his eyes. He told the pastor everything about his struggles, his fears, and how he felt abandoned by God. The pastor listened quietly, then placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "My son, God has not abandoned you. Sometimes He allows us to reach the end of our own strength so we will lean on His. Keep trusting Him and you will see His hand at work." Daniel left the church with a strange sense of peace, though nothing in his situation had changed. That night he prayed again at his bedside. It was not a long or fancy prayer, just a cry from the heart. God, I need help. Show me that you are real. The next morning Daniel woke early and went out to search for food. He decided to check behind a bakery where the owner sometimes left scraps. As he approached, he saw the owner standing there loading bread into his truck. The man looked at Daniel and said, "I have extra loaves today. Would you like to take some home?" Daniel nodded quickly and thanked him with tears in his eyes. It was a small thing, yet it felt like the first answer to his prayer. Later that day Daniel went to the market to look for work. He saw a crowd gathered near a stall. A young boy had collapsed and people were shouting for help. Daniel ran forward and carried the boy to the clinic. The boy's father was grateful and asked Daniel his name. When Daniel explained his situation, the man said, "I own a small workshop and I need someone I can trust. If you want a job, come tomorrow morning." Daniel could hardly believe it. In less than 24 hours after praying for help, he was offered steady work. Over the next few weeks Daniel worked hard at the workshop repairing tools and machines. His boss treated him kindly and paid him fairly. With the money he bought medicine for his mother and food for his brother. His family began to smile again. Daniel thanked God every night for this unexpected blessing. But the greatest test of faith was still to come. One evening his mother's illness grew worse. The doctor said she needed an expensive treatment or she might not survive. Daniel had no way to pay for it even with his new job. He felt fear gripping his heart again. That night he returned to the little church and prayed alone in the quiet room. "Lord, I have nothing left to give. Please heal my mother. Show everyone that you are still a God of miracles." The next morning Daniel went to work as usual, though his heart was heavy. Around midday his boss called him into the office. The man said, "I have been watching your work and I am impressed. I want to give you an advance on your wages." Daniel was stunned. The amount was exactly what he needed to pay for his mother's treatment. He rushed home, gave the money to the doctor, and his mother received the care she desperately needed. In the following days she began to recover. The doctor called it remarkable. Daniel called it an answer from God. He told everyone who would listen about how the Lord had provided at just the right moment. Even his skeptical brother began to believe that maybe there was more to life than luck and chance. Daniel thought his troubles were ending, but life had another storm to send. A few months after his mother's recovery, his town faced a severe flood. Heavy rains fell for days and the river near their house rose higher each hour. People were evacuating quickly, carrying what they could on their backs. Daniel tried to keep calm as he led his mother and brother to higher ground. The workshop where he worked was also in danger of being washed away. As they reached the edge of the flooded street, Daniel heard someone shouting from a house where water had already reached the windows. A child was trapped inside, crying for help. Without thinking, Daniel ran through the waist-deep water, forced the door open and carried the child to safety. His family begged him not to go back, but Daniel heard more voices inside the house. He returned again and again until everyone was safe. When he finally climbed out of the water, exhausted and shaking, people cheered for him. A man from the crowd said, "You saved my daughter, may God bless you." Daniel only nodded because he felt something greater was happening. He remembered the pastor's words that God sometimes shows his power when we are weak and willing to serve. But Daniel's heroism came with a cost. After being in the cold water so long, he developed a fever. The next day he could barely stand. His mother wept as she watched him lying pale and weak. They had little money left after the recent treatment, and Daniel feared he might not recover. Still, even in his pain, he whispered prayers. "Lord, you saved me once before. I believe you will not leave me now." Days passed and Daniel's fever grew worse. Friends from the workshop brought food and medicine, but nothing seemed to help. One night when the fever was highest, Daniel dreamed that he was walking through a dark forest. He could hear wolves howling and see no path ahead. Just as fear gripped him, a bright light appeared, shining through the trees. A voice spoke, "Daniel, I am with you. Do not fear. Follow the light." When Daniel awoke, he felt a strange peace. He told his mother about the dream and she smiled weakly, saying, "God is reminding you that he is near." That afternoon the pastor from the little church came to visit. He prayed over Daniel and told him to keep trusting God. By the next morning the fever began to break. Within 2 days Daniel was strong enough to stand again. The doctor who checked on him shook his head and said, "This is unusual. You were very sick, yet you are recovering fast." Daniel knew it was no accident. As the flood waters receded, the town began to rebuild. Daniel returned to work, though he was still weak. His boss surprised him again, saying, "You risked your life to save others and I will not forget it." The workshop owner raised his wages and gave him extra to repair his own house. Daniel's family now had enough to live without fear of hunger. One evening as Daniel walked home, he found a wallet lying in the street. Inside was a large amount of money and an ID card. Many people might have been tempted to keep it, but Daniel remembered how God had provided for him honestly. He took the wallet to the address listed on the card. A woman answered the door, and when she saw the wallet, her eyes filled with tears. She explained that the money inside was meant for her sick husband's surgery, and losing it would have been devastating. She hugged Daniel and said, "May the Lord reward you." The next Sunday Daniel went to the little church again. This time he did not come in fear or desperation, but with a thankful heart. He shared his story with the congregation, how God provided food, work, healing and protection in ways no one could explain. People listened in silence and some even cried. The pastor said, "This is proof that God still works wonders." Daniel knew it was true because he had seen it with his own eyes. Word spread about Daniel's courage during the flood and his honesty in returning the wallet. A local charity invited him to speak at an event about faith and service. Daniel was nervous, but he agreed. When he stood before the crowd, he told them everything from the night he walked into the church cold and hungry to the day his mother was healed to the dream that gave him peace. He said, "I am not special. I am just a man who prayed and trusted God. If he could help me, he can help anyone." People were deeply moved. Several came to him afterward saying they had given up hope but now believed again. One man said, "I stopped praying years ago, but your story reminded me that God still listens." Daniel felt humbled because he realized his struggles had not been wasted. They had become a testimony to encourage others. As months went by, Daniel continued to work hard, but he also began helping at the church, teaching young people about faith and honesty. He would say, "Never think your prayers are too small or your life too broken for God to care. I have been at the bottom and I have seen His hand lift me up." But Daniel's journey was not finished. Another trial was coming, one that would test not only his faith but his courage to stand firm even when threatened.